A Shadow Eminence shall act as one of the mob. This was Cid Kagenoh's most sacred motto, a guiding principle for his entire existence. To be a true eminence was to be unseen, a force that moves history from the shadows, unlike the flashy snake that reveals its power for all to see. No, a true eminence was the unassuming frog, blending into the background, seemingly harmless. The roles of Shadow Eminence and mob were, in his mind, two sides of the same coin. This philosophy had served him well even in his past life, where he meticulously cultivated an aura of absolute mediocrity in school. One who aspires to true power, he mused, must first master the art of being utterly forgettable. 2 years after his sister's kidnapping and rescue, Cid arrived at the grand Midgar Royal Spellsword Academy, ready to apply his principles on a new stage. At 15, he was now a student at the same prestigious institution as his sister, a gathering place for the kingdom's most promising young nobles. For 2 months, he had diligently worked to achieve grades at the lower end of average, and his self-assimilation into the mob was proceeding flawlessly. His 2 friends, Hyoro and Jaga, the equally unremarkable second sons of baronial households, greeted him with news of the latest practical exam. While they had been designated as Bs, Cid proudly announced he had secured a C rank, feigning disappointment over his low mana. This, of course, meant he had lost their bet. The penalty was simple and deliciously humiliating. Just then, the Academy's idol, Princess Alexia Midgar, breezed past, leaving a heartbroken duke's son in her wake. She delivered a rejection that took mere seconds. The duke's son was left stunned by the swift dismissal. Hyoro identified her as the untouchable princess, for whom love was apparently worthless. His friends gossiped about her future, but Cid had more pressing concerns. He tried to squirm out of his punishment, but Hyoro was adamant. Whoever loses in the tests must confess to a girl. Cid feigned mortification, claiming it was too embarrassing. He knew she would turn him down, which was precisely why his trash friends were so excited to watch the train wreck. They pushed him forward, eager for the spectacle. Internally, however, Cid was ecstatic. This was it. Confessing to a popular girl and getting completely shot down? It was the quintessential mob character event, a performance he had been preparing for his entire life. He had spent nights researching the perfect method, a true scholar of pathetic confessions. Success would skyrocket his mob rating, bringing him one step closer to becoming a true eminence in shadow. He would now perform the mobbest mob-fession ever. He approached the princess, his body a carefully orchestrated symphony of patheticness. He began with a staccato of nervous stutters, his voice cracking with vibrato, and hunched forward at a precise 60-degree angle. His knees and hands trembled, and his gaze was fixed firmly on the ground. He calculated the ideal distance, a mildly distant 182 centimeters, before raising a shaky hand. Then, with a final burst of performative courage, he prepared to bow. He bowed at a perfect 90-degree angle. "Please go out with me," he stammered, the question mark hanging in the air to express his utter lack of confidence. It was perfect, a masterpiece of a confession, with no fancy words needed. This was not just acting, this was art. Princess Alexia was silent. Then the unthinkable happened. She took his hand. I'm so happy you asked. I'll be in your care from now." Cid's brain short-circuited. He could only stammer in confusion. "I accepted your confession," she said, tilting her head. "You wanted to go out with me, right?" In a flash of horror, Cid realized his carefully laid plans had derailed. He had somehow switched tracks from being a mob character to becoming a romantic comedy protagonist. At lunch, the strangeness of the situation was a palpable force. His friend Jaga agreed that it was strange. Hyoro concurred. It was very strange. Cid couldn't fathom why the princess who shot down a duke's son would accept him, a nobody. His friends, dripping with envy, suggested she was just amusing herself at his expense. The entire student body was now staring and whispering about him. The horrifying realization hit him. Crap, I'm standing out. This disaster threatened his entire life's work. He had to end this fast. He assured his friends he didn't actually intend to go out with her. He told them he would break up with her soon. He made them swear to keep the penalty game a secret. His planning was interrupted by the princess herself. She appeared with her maid, calling out to him. His friends, instantly starstruck, stammered their approval for her to join their table. Cid watched as a maid began to serve Alexia a lavish meal. The maid wished her bon appétit. A new, brilliant plan formed in Cid's mind. Alexia mentioned that she orders the expensive course out of consideration for others. She admitted she could never finish it and would prefer a lesser course. While his friends fawned over her kindness, Cid saw his opening. "In that case," he declared, "I'ma nab your main dish." He proceeded to yoink her meat and fish. He began stuffing his face like a barbarian. The plan was simple. Be so utterly rude and devoid of manners that she would be forced to dump him. But instead of disgust, Alexia just giggled. "You little glutton," she said with a radiant smile. "Eat your fill." She even offered him her bread. His friends melted into puddles of adoration, their previous scorn forgotten. Alexia then informed him they would be training together in the Royal Bushin-style elective. She added that she had already used her recommendation to get him into the expert class. It was, she said, a royal order. In the training hall, the expert class sparred. They were all clad in their black uniforms. Cid, a lone figure in the white of a beginner, took in the scene. He mused on the class system, where experts wore black and beginners, like him, wore white. The instructor, Zenon Griffey, called for the class to gather. He introduced Cid to the skeptical class. The students' objections were silenced by the mention of Princess Alexia's recommendation. They reluctantly accepted his presence. Cid wryly noted their devotion to the princess. Alexia, now in a sleek black training dress, arrived and challenged him to a bout. He tried to refuse, but she promised to match his level. He sighed and agreed. They sparred, their swords clashing. Cid was genuinely impressed. Her swordsmanship was polished and clean. He noted it was the result of mastering the basics, step by step. She was a true hard worker, unlike her famously talented sister, Iris. Alexia watched him intently, pausing their spar. "Your swordsmanship is not bad," she admitted. "But I don't like it." With a sudden burst of power, she sent his sword flying. She apologized, but Cid, who had let go on purpose, brushed it off. Instructor Zenon approached, gently chiding Alexia for her carelessness. Alexia recognized her instructor. He returned Cid's sword and complimented his skill. Zenon began to talk about the royal Bushin style. Cid exchanged pleasantries with him about the sword style he helped popularize. Zenon humbly downplayed his contribution. Alexia, growing impatient, cut them off. She pulled Cid into an embrace. "We're a couple, madly in love," she announced to the instructor. "Could you give us some alone time?" Cid froze, a deer in the headlights. Zenon's smile was thin. "You won't be able to keep running away like that, you know." Alexia shot back that she didn't understand adults' business. The air crackled with unspoken tension as Zenon walked away. Later, the pieces finally clicked into place for Cid. He confronted her, accusing her of using him as a shield against Zenon, her fiancé. Alexia confirmed his suspicions, admitting Zenon's recent pressure to be her fiancé candidate had become tiresome. Cid was furious. "Don't drag me in," he yelled. He accused her of toying with his delicate heart by accepting his confession just because he seemed harmless. Alexia just smirked. "I think the same goes for you, Mr. Cid penalty game loser, Kagenoh." She revealed his friend had sung like a canary the moment she'd said hello. As Cid mentally plotted his friend's demise, Alexia began to feign tears. She theatrically accused him of breaking a maiden's heart and threatened him with public execution. Cid gritted his teeth. The princess was an actor, and a damn good one. Defeated and blackmailed, Cid agreed to her terms. He asked why she disliked the seemingly perfect Zenon. She pointed out his suspicious smile, despite his otherwise excellent qualities. Alexia explained that there are no perfect people, only liars. She chose Cid because he was predictable scum, just the way I like it. With that, she tossed a bag of coins at his feet as payment. Cid made a grand show of refusing the money, but he immediately dropped to his knees and scrambled for the gold when she called his bluff. "Good boy," she purred, grabbing his tie. Since he had accepted payment, he was now at her command. They would remain a couple until Zenon backed off. She leaned in close. "Understood? Pooch?" Cid tried to protest the humiliation, but she simply tossed another coin. He instinctively gave chase and thus began his new life as the twisted princess's fake lover and pet. It wasn't just the money, he told himself. There was something else at play here.